Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. This is USA Prepares. And, you know, if you'd like to call us today, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vin Finelli. Doc Ram's with us. Welcome, Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Good morning, Vincent. Thank you. Well, I mean for the good morning thing. Yeah, good morning. Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I got a call last night, and it was from Europe, and it was P.J. Barden, and he does the Barden Report on Republic Broadcasting. And we were talking about the election and Donald Trump and so forth. And then he asked me the question. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't ask me. He said, "Did you vote?" I said, no. No, I didn't vote for in the presidential selection. And boy, he came down on me. He was really annoyed with me because I did not vote for or cast my opinion for who would be selected by the Electoral College, because my opinion has no bearing. And he was really genuinely upset with me for not voting. And then a couple minutes later, he invited me to be on the air with him on Saturday.
Whoops.
20.
He would have, values. People have different values, and you can't judge a person that way. It's not right, because often the values are indicative of where you grew up, like, Christianity and Hinduism. If you had been born in India, your values would have been quite different than being born here in the United States. A lot of people think that, it's an important thing to exercise your right to vote. It is. But it is also a right to protest and not participate in things that you don't believe in. And that's also your right. And right now, I could go either way in terms of those particular specific values, because I have to tell you that none of what happened is real. And December 9th, when the Electoral College does or does not actually give the presidency to Donald Trump based on popular as opposed to Electoral College votes. The gerrymander, look, it was Trump that said himself that the thing is rigged. It is. And nothing that is happening today is actually real or reflective of the true values and needs of America. And I am embarrassed now to be called an American. I feel ugly, and I didn't do it. And I know that I'm a good person, and yet I'm embarrassed when I talk to friends in Mexico or other places like that. I have friends in Canada that are wondering what I'm going to do now. Are we going to have a revolution? Are we going to have a war? Are we going, the questions can continue to go on. And frankly, I haven't got a clue what's going to happen next.
Well, I'm with you. I'm certainly not happy. And I'm certainly not happy with what has happened for the last bunch of presidencies.
Just in Portland, Oregon, where I live, I don't live in Portland. Portland's up north of me, but in Portland they had a bunch of riots on the Trump riots. They're all over the country. 70 95% of the people participating in those riots were not even from Oregon. How does that work? They interviewed a couple of kids. One was 18. He voted for the first time, and he voted for Clinton and thought that Donald Trump was a buffoon. Well, an 18-year-old having that level of opinion is laudable, and I'm impressed. And yet, the kid was not from Oregon. How does that work? Why is he rioting in Oregon? I have a lot of questions. I don't believe that any of it is true. I think there's shills going on. Certainly, the athletes that are banning the Trump hotels now have a right to do that. I remember when they wouldn't want to do it down in the South because of prejudice and discrimination. Vincent, are you there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just had a small technical difficulty.
Isn't it amazing how it always seems to happen when we're about to do something like this?
Yeah. I was on the phone last night. I had a chance to talk with one of my college friends. She and I were lab partners back at the university in the 70s, and
wow.
She sent me an email and said, how you doing? And so when I was on the phone with her, she said, I haven't seen her in the last, maybe 15 years or so. And she said, I checked the arrest records to see if you were okay, to see if you've been arrested. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
You, huh?
Well, I don't know why she didn't just call the house. Well, she had a whole bunch of phone numbers. So she didn't call the house, but she was concerned that I was arrested and have disappeared. So she wanted to make sure I was okay. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But we talked about the election, and so I said, well, did you vote? She said yes. And she asked me if I did, and I said no, and I explained why. And she thought that was reasonable. So we're talking about, a very educated person. She's the chairwoman of a department in a college. So she's bright. She's, on top of what's happening. But we talked about, I said, well, why don't you just go to a search engine and type in Clinton, deaths, Deaths, and see what happens. And so we talked about, the number of mysterious deaths around the Clinton family. And I explained how dangerous it would be to be a friend of the Clintons. It would, shorten a person's life expectancy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we went over that, and, when we were done, I think she had realized that, I guess her vote didn't count. Her husband's vote didn't count. None of her children's votes counted. Of course, mine, if I had voted, didn't count. And that's just the way it is. And so over the years, I was thinking about the people whom I supported. Initially, I supported Ron Paul. That didn't work out. I voted for H. Ross Perot. That didn't work out. The guys who I think are the best candidates don't seem to make it. So now I'm wondering...
What happens when none of them are considered even valid candidates? Like this election. Neither is truly what I would call presidential material. I would have thought that our president is supposed to reflect our most educated and most scholarly.
Well, Donald Trump is supposedly a man of an IQ of 120 or so, maybe up to 130. George W. Bush was the selected person to be at the head of corporate U.S., and his IQ was the lowest of all the presidents. He even had what was called Bush-isms. And one of the things that he said, if I'm not mistaken, is he's been misunderestimated all his life. It's not even a word.
Misunderestimated.
Yeah, I've been misunderestimated.
Yeah, well, they now have a computer that does that. But, I have to say that the whole thing is creepy, and that I just don't get it. I don't get it. Trump may still not become our president.
Well, it would be a terrible thing if he's taken out.
That would cause a revolution for sure. You know, if the Electoral College reversed for the first time in history, and they could December 9th. And Soros, who's also a criminal, it said so, is that the fix was on and that this would happen, and that at some point when they tried to give, the Electoral College tried to give the presidency to Clinton, she would not be able to be found, like habeas corpus. Produced
and there's a name that just came up this morning, Henry Kissinger. He's
there's your boy from Brazil.
That is scary to me. And I'll tell you what happened. Maybe this is coincidence, but let me explain it. Bob Chapman used to be on the air with me 2 hours a week. And it was great. It was really great. And one day I asked him, I said, so who are these, these people who are really running the world? And I mentioned Kissinger's name. And I said, well, what position would he be, ranking from number 1 to, lower? And he said 15, number 15. The next thing I know, we were talking about Henry Kissinger, Bob gets sick. He has a pancreas problem. And I would say within a few months he was dead, Bob Chapman. And he was absolutely brilliant. He was, he owned a newsletter called the International Forecaster, and it would come out a couple times a week, and we'd receive it here at the farm. And he was right about so many things. And so he talked about Henry Kissinger, and then he dies. Then I was on the air with Larry Nichols, a Clinton insider, and so who's Henry Kissinger? And I hear, to my shock, that's above my pay grade. I believe that was the quote. I may be wrong, but that's pretty much what he didn't want to talk about Henry Kissinger. So it seems like Henry Kissinger is the guy in the shadows that people are afraid to discuss. Now,
is he a Zionist by any chance?
I don't know much about him, but he seems to be involved in world affairs, and so I'll tell you what, if any of you know who Henry Kissinger is, give us a call. And you can call us at 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. So the question is, who's Henry Kissinger? Doc Ram and I'll be right back. Doc Ram's with us, and you mentioned Henry Kissinger. So according to Wikipedia, Henry Alfred Kissinger was born in 1923. It says he's an American diplomat and a political scientist. He serves as a national security advisor. He served as a national security advisor and later as the United States Secretary of State in the administrations of Nixon and Gerald Ford. And there are plenty of posts that say that Henry Kissinger, I'm looking at another one, Henry Kissinger, he's, according to this post called The Poison Apple of the World.com, Henry Kissinger, it looks like, is quoted as saying, military men are dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns for foreign policy. And then it says, Henry Kissinger, the most evil Zionist. So I'll put these posts on the website for those who want to see them. But there's another thing. You mentioned George Soros. George Soros's real name is George Schwartz. And it says that he, let's see, where was this about? That he is has dual citizenship, United States and Hungary. So that's interesting. So he has dual citizenship. So where is his loyalty?
Yeah, I don't have a clue in any of this stuff. I much prefer to be a nerd, not involve myself with these kinds of people. But thank God, I did have an opportunity to get to know Richard Nixon, and I actually got a chance to go inside the Oval Office representing certain branches of disclosure, and it was military. And I found him extremely intelligent But he got caught. And I'm wondering what the action is between the FBI and Hillary Clinton. I'm wondering why that happened as it did. I'm certain there's a real interesting story there.
You mean why they were going to investigate her, then they weren't, then they were, then they're not?
Yeah, exactly. The on-again, off-agains, and the releases of certain specific emails that she had covered up. She's a bad person. Her husband was a bad person. And I think anything that they have to do, like out here in Burns, Oregon, is very, very bad. Right now, most all of our natural resources now have been given to China. That Burns, Oregon event was about the Clinton Foundation giving a Class 1 uranium mine to Russia. And people were killed because of it as a plausible deniability thing. Everybody that was involved, including those that pleaded guilty, are now no longer being charged. There's more going on here, and I don't know that we'll ever really know the full story of what's going on, other than once they had tomography, they knew where everything was in the world underground. And then the world just started to change because of the minerals and mining and logging and all the rest of it that's going on right now. It's, I feel like we're being duped, and that there's something way more sinister going on than just the 1%ers. I have to believe that there's other kinds of entities that are involved in the development of the human race. I think something else is going on here, and I probably will never really get to know. I've been invited to Mexico again. The big thing that I did, where I got to meet the president of Mexico and everything back in 2014, is now going to have another one in 2017, a huge conference inviting some very heavy names, and it's about UFO disclosure. Now, I don't know what I'm part of anymore.
UFO disclosure, and that was, by the way, that was something that Bill Clinton was very, very interested in. He wanted to know if there were UFOs, and from what I understand, he was told that his security clearance wasn't high enough. When we come back, can we talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on UFOs? Doc Ram, we'll be right back. Class Doc Ram's with us. DocRam.com, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. If you'd like to, by the way, if you'd like to go to a gun show this weekend, Wichita, Kansas, Cartersville, Georgia, Nashville, Tennessee, RK gun shows, rkshows.com, Wichita, Kansas, Cartersville, Georgia, Nashville, Tennessee, all this weekend, November 19 and 20. Rick, UFOs, what are they? And are they real?
Well, yes, of course they're real. They're unidentified. So where did they come from? That's unidentified. I don't know. We've had Foo Fighters that have been filmed. We have had UFO sightings over Mount Rainier in the early 50s that were unidentified. Throughout history, there are drawings on, cave walls where they've actually witnessed them. So, do I believe that UFO exists? Yes, I do. Do I believe that we have UFO? Yes, probably we do. I believe that we're being visited. I can't prove it. It is a personal belief, just like I believe in faith and other kinds of things. This is something that, without evidence, of supporting evidence, I absolutely know there's something else going on. I have personally witnessed artifacts that were not from anything in our current civilization, whether they were from a previous civilization that had technologies we did not, and or alien technologies, I don't know. It's always like that. It's like you have just enough to spur your peak of interest, and you know something's going on, but not enough to actually confirm it.
I met Al Bielek back in the 90s, and he claimed at that time that he and his brother Cameron were part of the Philadelphia experiment in the Philadelphia Naval Harbor, and that during World War II, the U.S. Navy was very interested in making ships invisible because we were taking some hits and our ships were being sunk. So the Navy was interested in making ships invisible. And he said that Nikola Tesla was involved, Robert von Neumann, and ultimately Albert Einstein was involved in the work there to try to make the ship, this test ship, the USS Eldridge, invisible. And there was an accident, as he said, and this accident caused a hole to be made in time. And he said through that hole, that is the hole through which the craft came and crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Have you heard that?
No, not that particular element of it. I am familiar with the Philadelphia experiments, of course, and have my own opinions on what I think happened there. I know John Hutchinson effect, who is essentially trying to duplicate some of those things working with harmonics in radar. How that all works, stay tuned. It's like technologies where dance and music or sound was used to change space-time. We know that that's possible because I've seen and witnessed things like Ghost Dance and the Whirling Dervish, and so I know that there's something else going on in that arena, but I don't have a clue yet what it means. It's outside my understanding of physics. Right now I'm writing on time travel and can tell you that time is not at all what we think it is. And so, are UFOs real? Listen, Boeing right now has a magnetic monopole. They absolutely do. It is obviously being used for some kind of a craft that balances itself on a space-time curvature. And whether they're using 3 or 4 magnetic monopoles like you would a chair in balancing for a union, I don't know how that all works, but I do know that we have that technology. We have teleportation technologies right now. So I don't know what it all means. I know that I don't know. Yeah.
When you say magnetic monopole, are you talking about some kind of a thrust engine that can be used?
It's not an engine. Propel? It's a one-sided magnetic monopole. Mono meaning one. That means it's either negative or positive, and the lines are coming out of it or the lines are going into it, but that it goes outward. And we have theoretically proposed such a concept. I have written some technical papers on that event, and now we have it. How it's being deployed in aircraft and or other kinds of vehicles, I don't know. I know that Boeing on it. As you mentioned that monopole, I was thinking, wouldn't that be technology that could be used to propel something through space? And then as you described it further, I was thinking, couldn't this be used as a weapon to disrupt, all kinds of things that there's all kinds of things that you can do with it, just like artificial intelligence. Right now, people do not realize that we now have a technology that is more dangerous than nuclear energy. The artificial intelligence and the D-wave technology of artificial intelligence has the potential of, people like Elon Musk and others are talking about us being trapped in a computer simulation. And when you realize that the Earth is made of silicone, that's another kind of life form. And that's what we call computer chips. And so I don't know. I can speculate because I love science fiction. I am your huckleberry in that regard. But I don't know.
When you say trapped inside a simulation, are you saying something like we have computers running everything? We have computers. I have an old Mercedes, and this darn thing will not let me start it and then put it in drive or reverse or neutral. The gear shift lever is absolutely, positively stuck. It's stuck because of a computer control. And so I have to manually override. I literally have to stick a pen, the diameter, like a Bic pen, inside this secret compartment that Mercedes puts there to override the computer control that will not let me put the
there's a series on TV that people could watch that if they're not sure what I'm talking about, called Person of Interest. And it is well done, well written, and semi-accurate in regard to what I think and understand is going on with artificial intelligence. And right now, this kind of life form is able to go into universes that a man cannot. Further, they're now, just as of yesterday, in Futurism Journal, they're talking about giving AIs the ability to feel pain. Now, imagine where this may go when we start to get into Kurzweil and his transhumanism. There's something else going on here, and time and space are not what we think they are, and when we do things like the Philadelphia experiment, we are left with more questions than we have answers.
So do you think that it's possible that there was an accident?
Yes, Dr. Carl Schleicher, one of my mentors, did the Philadelphia experiments, and basically they were working with radar systems to create an object that was invisible to radar. And what happened next was a seemingly spatial distortion that occurred that allowed several different kinds of things to fall into the same space together. Now, we know that a chair is not solid, that it's basically composed of mostly empty space. And what happened was that several things occupied that same location, including several human beings. And they were killed, of course. But we don't understand what that meant because we still don't have an accurate understanding yet on what space or time actually are.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. What actually is time?
Well, there it is. That's what I'm trying to write about now. It is the moment. And it's a cavitation ball. It's a like when a drop of water falls from the sky and hits a pool of water, there's the drop of water pops back up into the air, only it's not a drop of water anymore. It is a bubble trapping air inside it, and it's in a topological metaphor where it's turning inside out as a topological surface. It's called a cavitation ball, and we observe it in the most simplest of processes where we have a screw on a submarine or something going through the water, creating a bunch of little air bubbles. They're not air bubbles, but that's what they are. They're called cavitation bubbles. And that has now become the foundation of understanding how the Casimir effect works and cold fusion processes found in the leading edge of a wave that allows you to be able to surf. We're now only just now understanding how these processes work, and we observe them doing strange things to space-time, and yet we have no idea yet what it all means.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. What is cavitation? And it appears that there are these air bubbles that...
Well, it has to do, and by the way, yesterday on Facebook I posted they have found a second phase of liquid water that is very interesting, and I posted that on my Facebook page at docram.com. Now, that is the breakthrough. We are now discovering that water is not what we thought it is. It has a whole bunch of different elements to it, including ortho and para water, levorotary, where it's the dipole moment is going off in that direction rather than this direction. And so there are two kinds of water and then we have the isotopes,
And that was another question I had about sea levels rising.
I mean, every time I make a discovery, there are more questions than there are answers.
Absolutely right. And so one of those questions is, sea levels rising. We've learned that you take ice and it melts, and even though it's bigger, you may have a bit of good news. Breaking news: Director of National Intelligence James Clapper resigns, and as appointed persons in the administration, they're required when the term of their CEO is over, they're required to turn in letters of resignation. Well, James Clapper has already done that, so it's great. It's just a good first step to have some new blood in there, different blood. That's in concert with never re-elect anyone. So that's great news. James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, resigning, and he's going to stay through the end of the term, but he's leaving, which is wonderful. George in New Hampshire, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Hi, Ben. Hello, Rick.
Hey.
I just wanted to say one thing that you mentioned earlier. Bill Clinton asking about UFOs and told that he didn't have a high enough security clearance. Well, yes. I have a close friend who, relative, I'm going to talk around this because when I tell you what they said, it might even now have some ramifications. But anyway, what I got from very good authority, a certain relative was very connected. And whenever Bill Clinton said Kennedy, he moved in those circles. And he said he was sitting down in the Cape, I guess at Chappaquiddick, where they had the Kennedy compound. He goes, Bill Clinton was there, Senator Ed Kennedy, and spent the afternoon, and it was leisurely and off the record. And he said that Bill Clinton, out of the blue, just popped it to Senator Kennedy, who was pretty powerful and been around and might have heard some things. He says, what are UFOs? So Kennedy shot right back at him and said, if you want to get on the track, you should look into USOs, unidentified submerged objects. And he said they didn't talk much more beyond that. He just gave him that one line to say, go in that direction. And I know that they've seen a lot of things. D.B. Cooper, no, not D.B. Cooper. There was another man, Mr. Cooper. He had a talk program that was maybe, I guess he was, they're not sure, but they think he was murdered by the police.
His name was Bill Cooper, William Cooper.
Yeah. Well, he said that when he was in the Navy, him and the men on watch saw a very large saucer-type craft come out of the water, tilt, and go right into the atmosphere. And then after maybe a half hour or so, in the same general vicinity, he saw it come down and re-enter the ocean. And he said that basically they investigated it, and they had an intelligence officer from the Navy come down. And he goes, as soon as the man asked Mr. Cooper Bill Cooper, what he saw, he says, the previous guy, he goes, as soon as the guy started talking about the man vociferously swore at him. And the guy got mad and walked away, and he goes, when Bill came, he realized what he was doing. They wanted to hush the whole thing up. So they were telling him basically, don't ever mention this again. And Bill Cooper said, I didn't see anything. Nothing at all, sir. And he goes, you'll go far in the Navy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I used to listen to Bill Cooper on shortwave radio. I thought he was absolutely fabulous. And then he was murdered, right?
That's what they never really clarified it, but you know and I know, where the blue plague is involved, you're not going to get the right story because they're going to cover their assets, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I thought William Cooper was absolutely fabulous, and his broadcast, I believe, was called The Hour of the Time, if I'm not mistaken.
Something from some of the old things I've read. If I may just say this, and I won't hold you gentlemen up, you know who I think would be a very interesting occasional guest that I'm sure both of you have listened to? He was kind of the Art Bell of yesteryear, and he went off about 6 years ago for health reasons, was Chuck Carter from For the People.
I met Chuck Harder in Florida. I met him at. I went down to see the Telford Hotel. So I drove down there with Mrs. Finelli, and I was looking for him, and I couldn't find him. So I saw this large vehicle and a big guy in it, and it was at the drive-thru of a McDonald's. So I parked my car, ran over to him, and I said, "Are you Chuck Harder?" And he said, "Yeah." And he was getting his lunch, and then he took off. But so I saw him, but that was it. George, did you want to hold on?
No, that's okay. Thank you. Good talking to
Great.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay, good talking with you. Yeah, I'll see if I can find contact information for Chuck Harder. And I used to listen to him as well, his broadcast, and he had a publication For the People. And I think that was the name of his broadcast. We'll be right back. No shortage of commercials, right? Hey, Rick, I called all the numbers I could find during the commercial break, top of the hour, to contact Chuck Harder. And all the ones I could find have been disconnected. So if any of you have a link to contact Chuck Harder, if you could send that to me and just put important in the subject line, Chuck Harder contact, send it to Vincent at usaprepares.com. And I will certainly follow up. I tried to contact him during the break and was unsuccessful. So Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Rick, I'm looking at a post, and it says, mystery flight circles over Denver. Officials have few answers. And this is the denverchannel.com. And so this mysterious plane was circling, and yeah, you can see the chemtrails coming out the back. And here's the article. It says, Denver, this was yesterday, thousands saw a plane circling the Denver metro area late Wednesday morning, questioning where it may come from and what it may be doing. Officials at a host of federal organizations had few answers. Denver 7 began tracking a flight named Iron 99 as it traversed from California over the Pacific. It traveled over the Rocky Mountains and eventually over the Denver area. Its arrival over the Denver metro is what prompted questions from a host of locals who saw it circling, question what it might have been doing. So this plane was flying over the Denver metro area, and then said that Denver 7 reached out to a host of official sources in an attempt to learn more about the flight, but sources couldn't confirm any details. I saw one of these flights that circled over our area in Missouri, and it looks like you can't get information about these mysterious flights. And now it's mainstream media that is recognizing that we have these chemtrail flights. Any thoughts, Rick?
I'm speechless. I know there's something going on, but I haven't got a clue what it means.
Okay. So it says, when contacting the military, including both U.S. Northern Command, NORTHCOM, and the United States Strategic Command, STRATCOM, neither organization could confirm the identity of the plane or even locate it. So these are these mysterious flights. Obviously, they're spraying something because it's visible. It's coming out the back of these planes, and it's got to stop. And maybe that's one of the things I'd like Donald Trump to put his sights on first. One of the first things, stop the chemical spraying. And Rick, it is warm here in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. It is really warm. We were close to the 80s yesterday. Unbelievable. This is November. We used to put the heat on in the beginning of November, and now it's a short sleeve or t-shirt weather out here on the farm. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes, it's raining here and finally starting to get colder, but they're saying that if we have a cold winter, this will be the warmest year of ever in recorded history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is with the chemical spraying. This is with the spray to reflect sunlight back out into space, right?
Right.
And we're still having warm weather.
We've got a serious problem. Even the reindeer, there's reindeer up in the Arctic that they're talking about, like maybe 80,000 head of reindeer have died because the weather change up there has created a shortage of food. They can't get at it because it's under snow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem for farmers. And, I remember well over 100,000 head of cows died because of a fast, deep snowfall in the west, near the Rockies. And the cows could not find food. And, of course, they need more food when it's cold. And that is something that I'm extremely concerned about, this winter. I don't know if we're going to have this cold winter, but we're expecting it. And we're making sure all of our equipment can feed the cows and unroll hay and make sure that the cows can get into the woods for shelter and make sure that they also have water. I mean, those are really important to us, and we're very concerned about that this winter. So we've got big cleats on our tractors, those chevron pattern rear tires. We've got four-wheel drive tractor. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we're prepared. And that's another thing. We get a lot of calls here at the farmhouse, and I can't take a lot of calls because I'm out working on the farm preparing for what I believe is going to be a rough winter for the animals and us. I may be wrong. I'd be delighted if I'm wrong, but we're preparing for it at any event. Rick, you were talking about the second state of water. Can you give us a little bit more information? Do we know any more about the second state of water?
Water has different phases where, we used to talk about the three phases of water where it would go into a liquid, gas, or a solid. But now we've realized that there are other forms that water has. For example, on Mars, at 100 below Fahrenheit, it will not freeze. It'll still remain as a liquid. Now, that's called a phase of water. Other forms have to do with where water clusters with itself, like H3O2, where you have three water molecules joining together in a cluster, and then a free radical ion from one of them running around. That's what you would find around a waterfall, and that behaves completely differently. And then you have where you have hydrogen peroxide, which is H2O2, and you would bring a third hydrogen molecule in that would bond and create what is called exclusion zone water. That is a very interesting state of matter. It is what touches all surfaces. That was Rustum Roy's work at Penn State, where he would put a small drop of something in water, and it would restructure the entire content of the water vessel because of the different forms of water touching the surface and the way it would behave.
Rick, we've got a call from Australia. Gwyneth Isaacs is joining us. Gwyneth, welcome.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this evening?
Well,
it's this evening over here. It's actually early in the morning over here.
3 a.m., isn't it? 3:15,
yeah,
maybe?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gwyneth,
so what
you started there.
You called me earlier this morning, and you've got some news for us. Something that happened to you in Australia. You want to share that with us?
Yeah. I had some visitors earlier today. Basically, 3 police cars with 5 police officers showed up my place, and they would not leave.
Mm-hmm.
They showed up at my place. What was that, sorry?
Did you invite them to leave?
I told them to get off my land.
Mm.
And they would not leave. They said that I had missed a court date. Now, I didn't know that there was actually a court case going on because they said, well, we sent you a letter and I didn't receive the letter. And, normally if there's a court case, they're supposed to inform you, and you have to receive the summons by, registered mail, or it has to be handed to you, right?
Right.
And I didn't receive anything of the sort. And they said, I didn't see it, they said they had a warrant for my arrest.
Oh, so did they arrest you?
Well, they were going to. They said, well, we will arrest you if you don't sign this bail form, and then you may go. And I said, well, if I sign that form, it's not going to be of my own free will. And they said, okay, well, we'll arrest you then. And I said, well, I'll sign it, but it's going to be under duress. And they said, oh, well, what does under duress? I said to them, do you know what under duress means? And they said yes. And I said, did you know that it means the same as via coercio, which is by coercion, and it means the same as enslavement. And I said, do you understand that you are enslaving me? And initially they said, well, yes. And then I said, oh, well, that's very interesting. I'll sign your form, but it's not of my own free will, because there's, you guys are going to arrest me otherwise.
Did this group from the plague, did they have guns?
Oh, yes.
Did you have a gun?
No.
Mm-hmm. So
no.
There were five armed
armed people showed up and would not leave and threatened to kidnap me unless I signed a form. That's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
No argument from me, and that is many of our worst nightmare. These guys show up, overwhelming force, 3 cars, five plague members. That's overwhelming force against one
widow woman.
One, yeah. Can you imagine?
One widow woman.
Yep. Well, I guess I want to make sure
if you want to contact the Englewood Police, I'll leave their details with Vincent. Okay? Be polite, please.
Send me the contact information. Gwyneth, thanks so much for being with us. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Hey, Rick, I was doing some tractor therapy over the last few days, and you might call it, I was following Hillary Clinton's example, and I was spreading manure on the here at the farm. And I was thinking, maybe I should write a book. And the book would be about things that I've learned. We might call it bruises and how to avoid them. Farming tips, auto mechanic tips, negotiation tips, tax tips, doing things that you haven't done before, and, just a collection of those kinds of things that I've learned. Do you have any advice or counsel for me? Should I pursue this?
I'm not sure. What do you mean?
Well, how does one go about writing a book? Do you organize your thoughts? Do you put down
Well, everybody does it differently. Yeah, everybody does it differently.
Well, knowing me the way you know me, what would you suggest? Just dictate it into Dragon Naturally Speaking, or what would?
Yeah. Just start writing, and then allow it to organize itself.
Okay, because I'm easily distracted, so maybe. Okay, and how long does it take to write a reasonable book? I don't want to do a lousy job. I want to do a pretty good job at this. Actually, I want to do a very good job.
Everybody's different, and so for me, I can write a book in 1 month.
Well, I've seen you type, and you are really fast.
No, it's what I do. It's just, my thoughts are already semi-organized so that when I start to write, it's already coming out in the way it should. Mm-hmm. I write almost like I speak.
Yeah. Do you, when you write, or after you've written, do you have someone review it for grammar
for proofing,
and
for
flow?
typos and sentence structure and punctuation and yes, I have someone read it to tell me this is really clear or this is not very clear.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what's the next step after you've gotten your file together? Meaning you've gotten your book written. What do you do with it next?
Well,
do you have
okay,
a
then
publisher?
You have layout, stripping, and artwork, and how you want it to look. The physical appearance of the book. Does it read? Do you need a bigger font? Do what size of book are you writing? How many pages is it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm thinking,
and then you have artwork, and then you have layout and stripping, where they lay out each page so it looks exact. And then you have to go back through and index it, and there's just a whole series of different things that goes on to produce a book. But everybody does it differently.
Well, can I do all that? Can I do all that myself? I mean, I can.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah,
okay,
that's why they have ebooks now.
I was thinking about taking my own pictures, doing my own layout, and then actually doing it all myself. Maybe have someone proofread it, but mostly do it all myself.
Uh-huh.
And is that possible, or is that overwhelming?
That's what most of us do.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, I was under a vehicle in the garage yesterday, and I was thinking about, I've got some tips. I can just take some pictures of here's how I do things, and that could be just one item in this book. So this would be a compendium of a lot of things that I've learned, the hard way, and maybe some others can learn without doing it the hard way, do it a lot less expensively than I've done it. Okay, I'm looking at a glass of water, Rick, and this glass of water has ice cubes in it, kind of like you might get at a restaurant. And the ice cubes actually extend above the rim of the glass. But, I remember, Rick, from elementary science class, that when that ice melts, the cup is not going to overflow. Right? Because ice is less dense than the water surrounding the ice, and that's why it floats. But when it melts, it gets smaller. So water has a couple properties that are very interesting. One, water expands when it freezes, and water expands when it's heated. Right? Is it the only material that we know of that does that? Expands when it's heated and frozen?
Pretty much. Water is very unusual in that regard.
Can we talk more about that? Class, if you'd like to go to Rick's website, docram.com, and that's where you can peruse his book offerings, and you can buy many of his books. That's at docram.com. Rick, are there any books that you'd like to highlight that are of
Well,
particular...
just came out with the Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture. It's now in 9 volumes and available on my website as an ebook.
Okay. Do you, and that's available right now?
Right now, yeah.
Okay. Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture at docram.com?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Do you know the price of it, Rick?
I think I have a bargain. If you buy all 9 volumes, I think it's only $43 or something like that. 9 volumes.
Okay. And Rick, so who should consider buying that 9 volumes?
Anybody that's interested in alternative crops and or putting some kind of a pharmacy together. Yeah. Just,
Okay.
I wrote it a long time ago as my way of learning how things work. And now it's like a valuable tool because this kind of information isn't really even available anywhere at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So someone who is interested in maybe going off the grid, someone who is interested in being independent.
This would be the way to go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for doing that, Rick. I'm looking at an image that says, without water, there's no life. And I believe that's correct. As I've been taught, there's no organism that can live without water. Is that correct?
Yes, pretty much. There are some viruses that live on other kinds of things besides water, but yes, that's pretty much correct.
Okay. So then, as I extrapolate this in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, so if GMO, we'll call them foods, don't do the job and eliminate population, do you think water would be used as a weapon next?
Well, water is now being weaponized. I mean, that's what it is. They're trying to take over everything. Our air that we breathe, the water that we drink, it's terrible.
Well, that's a concern. I'm trying to think what we do about this other than filter our water and get away from the cities. I mean, those are two things that I'm thinking about. I mentioned to Norm Shealy yesterday this black dust that I've noticed. I'd like to share it with you as well. So I was working on an air conditioning system in a city on the East Coast. A refrigerator. And I was cleaning out the coils. And I noticed this black dust. It's like an oily black dust. And I haven't seen that here on the farm. We have dust. And if we go under our refrigerator and look at the coils, it's going to be a tan-colored dust. But this dust on this refrigerator on the East Coast in a city was black. I noticed that when I was walking on the sidewalk near a Chinese restaurant and a pizza joint, there was black discoloration on the white sidewalk where people would step coming out of the pizza restaurant and the Chinese restaurant. And then I was teaching an automotive class here at the farm, and I was explaining that the black dust on the front wheels of the vehicle we were working on was a result of the brake pad dust. And I was thinking then that, you know what, this black that I'm seeing, black dust that's collecting in cities, is a result of brake pad particles. And I'm thinking that this is a pretty dangerous thing. But most people don't see it. They don't see it because it's these small particles of airborne brake dust. But a lot of them are containing asbestos and lead and cadmium and other metals. Rick, do you think that this is a serious threat to our health?
We're heavy metals and all of that are invasive in almost everything now, our food and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do think it's dangerous.
Okay. And I was thinking about, chili peppers and, these spices that we now, and we have been buying, and they come in these nice packages and these nice little containers and jars. And how do they dry them? Do they dry them out in the sun? Do these particles land on these spices and the lettuce and, all these other things and the wheat that goes into pasta and bread and whatever else we may consume as villagers, going to the store? I can't see how we can get around being poisoned by some of these airborne particles, including radiation. I can't figure out how to fix it. Is there a way other than growing our own food and washing every single surface area of the food we eat, before it's processed? Is there a way? I can't think of one. Did I just lose Rick?
What's that?
Do you have any
sorry. I've got something else going on here. I have to. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm unable to figure out a way that we can eat food without having it being covered to some extent with these airborne particles. I'm talking about spices. I'm talking about wheat. The grains. vegetables? I mean, how do we? I don't know an answer, and I can't figure one out other than growing it ourselves and washing it ourselves. It's the only thing I can think of. Is there another way?
We're in a bad situation right now.
Okay.
The air that we're breathing is more toxic than the water we're drinking now, probably.
Yeah. And who's not coughing? Are you seeing people coughing around you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. They are here too. You just go into any public place and you hear the clearing of the throat, the coughing. Okay. Rick, black holes. Do we know what black holes are?
No, we don't. We have an idea and theory on it, and more likely than not, it's a cavitation process where the black hole has a white hole at the other end of it that allows a different kind of a universe to occur, kind of like the difference in between death and consciousness. This is something that I'm theorizing right now, and I don't have a complete model on it yet. I'm writing it. That's what I'm doing, is in discovery.
So is a black hole like a funnel that is spinning?
It's basically a gravitational field so powerful as to bend space and time into itself. And that's basically what it is. So, a black hole is at the center of all of our universes. Each of our galaxies has a black hole in it. And I don't know where that goes, but we can speculate. We have things like dark energy that we don't understand what it is. It might be from the other side of the black hole. Who knows?
So are these black holes in equilibrium at this point, or are they pulling toward each other? Or
they're in collision, and so they have all kinds of different black holes. Some are stable, and some are not. And they're constantly changing the universe.
Okay. Does that impact earthquakes? Does that impact our...
Well, yeah, pretty much all earthquakes are a direct result of what our sun is doing at any given moment. And that is pretty much where we're at right now. We have a sun that is starting to change and create a situation on Earth with weather and other kinds of things. And we call it global warming, but really it's just our sun making changes, which is what it's always been about.
What about all these holes that we drill in the ground? We drill holes in the ground and we pump water out. We drill holes in the ground and we
creates
pump oil
cavitation like it does in your gum. That's one of the reasons why everybody is so down on root canals and things of that nature, because what it's going to do to the mouth itself and the gum, and allowing other kinds of things to happen.
Well, what I was asking is, if we drill a hole in the ground and we pump water out, now we have a void there.
Yes.
And isn't that void susceptible to, well, we've lost some of the supporting forces that keep everything in equilibrium. We pump oil out, we do the same thing, and we're removing the lubrication properties that are in that supporting oil, right? That's pushing out in all directions.
Right.
Doesn't that help us have more earthquakes by doing that?
Well, yeah, there's no question that part will create earthquakes and related phenomena.
Is there an answer, Rick, to our energy situation? And here's where I'm going with this. So we burn things and we create heat and we generate electricity. We burn fossil fuels or fuel oil, and we move diesel trucks, and we burn gasoline. But is there all of these energy production systems that I can think of all have a byproduct which is toxic to us? Is there any energy system that we know of that's not toxic.
No. Even light, taken from the sun has conversion problems and things like that. So at this point, we're barbaric in our energies, our concepts of energies.
Okay. As I think about this, well, it doesn't sound like it bodes well for humanity, because we're still playing with fire and the dangers of the fire and the pollution of the fire, and there's, well, here's the next question, Rick. So we're putting all this carbon into the system, carbon dioxide. Is there a place that we can put it, or is there a solution to the carbon dioxide problem?
Hi, my name is Stephen Holson.
I don't know if I can answer any of these kinds of questions.
Doc Rams with us. Rick, last week we ran out of time. We were talking about the Mandela effect, and that was kind of fascinating. Can you bring us up to speed with what the Mandela effect is?
Yeah, it's related. They're trying to suggest that there are timelines and that they're being changed because of memories not being the same. There's things like the Care Bears, and they do a bunch of examples where our memory of something is a little different than what actually happened. How does that work? I don't know how it works. It is a product of our times where we remember something slightly differently than the way it actually happened. And so that part is called the Mandela effect, where apparently a bunch of people thought that Mandela died, in the 80s, when in fact he's still alive, kind of thing. And how does
You're
that
not talking
work?
about. You're not talking about where we know that we learned about Smokey the Bear, and then
and now
the government then tells us. The government tells us, no. That's not what you heard. It was Smokey Bear.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And they're lying to us. So you're
I
saying
don't
it's
know
kind
that
of like
they're
that?
lying as much as our memories are somehow remembering something different than what actually happened. How does that work?
Well, I know for sure it was Smokey the Bear. Don't you remember that?
Yes, Smokey was always the bear. That's correct. And so Smokey Bear is a new concept, but a lot of people remember when that was actually being touted as a valid memory. And so people are trying to say, well, you're working from a different timeline. And that is actually what I'm writing about today. I'm actually writing about that today.
And when they were trying to convince us that it was not Smokey the Bear that we learned about probably in the 60s, only you can prevent forest fires. That's what Smokey the Bear says. And they're saying, no, it wasn't Smokey the Bear. Just like it's not Easter the Bunny. It's Easter Bunny, not Easter the Bunny, and it's Smokey Bear, not Smokey the Bear.
Right.
So is that what we're talking about?
Yes, and how does that work? That you can go back and see that Star Wars seemingly has statements about Luke and Darth Vader that are different than what you remember from the actual movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you think this is designed to confuse us, to keep us off guard?
No, I think it's a product of current physics changing what we think a quantum universe is and what it is not. There's a difference. There's a difference in things now than there were originally. And how does that work? Well, some of it is confabulation, the idea that we have somehow misremembered something, and how's that and why. And of course, until it actually happens to you, doesn't mean very much. I'm going to write that article. When I'm finished with it today, I'll give it to you for post. How's that? And we'll see.
I'd love that. Sounds fabulous. Got Mike in Tennessee. Welcome.
Hey, real quick, I know time is short. They've been dealing with the phenomenon of time travel since the Philadelphia experiment, and basically what you deal with is when they do these time travels, when they go back and they change the physical, that's not a problem because your memory stays the same. Your memory is not changed because you actually lived it and experienced it. So your memory is correct. What is being altered is the physical, so they can go back in time, change the movies, change the script, change the books. But what you know is what really happened. So don't doubt yourself. You are correct. The stuff's been changed.
Mike Parsons, thanks so much for chiming in. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you so much for being with us today. And so, class, if you'd like to go to his website, docram.com, docram.com, and you can get that encyclopedia of alternative agriculture. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you again. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.